like that. Straw and balloon breathing are great tools to help to influence the way that we utilize airflow and warm up, but the way that air travels up is just as important as the way that air travels down. In this episode, we talk about how to properly progress your straw and balloon breathing exercise to get the most out of these tools. So straws and balloons are two of my favorite tools to help to influence the ability to produce and control pressure from the bottom up. I've seen a lot of explanations of why straws and why balloons work from sort of the top down or from sort of the airway down to the voice box. We're going to talk about the way that they influence the abdominals, the way that they influence the lungs and the diaphragm, that sort of thing. The way that I see that is it's a form of progressive resistance, meaning that we can strengthen the ability of our abdominals to sort of control the air, eccentrically control the opening of the rib cage to give us more elastic recoil, as well as to control the ability of the abdominals to close the ribs to create a little bit more forced exhalation when we need it. So very, very useful. But the problem with that is that when we use them at inappropriate times, what I mean by that is just kind of like we talked about last week, starting with humming to bring down or to optimally position the voice box and the hyoid. If I use a straw or balloon that is super, super tough or tense, and I do something like this where I'm blowing up, I have to kind of like, and again, that's ridiculous, but what that's going to do if I'm not ready for that is it's going to cause me to kind of go into my anterior neck muscles. It's going to cause me to start to go into some of the compensations that you're going to notice when you become fatigued and that sort of thing. So it's very much progression. So we want to knock out the stuff that we talked about in our week one first, make sure we're good with that. From there, we can start to progress open mouth exhalation from open to closed mouth that will give you a progression for in the next segment, and then progress to balloons. Okay, so this will be a very kind of inhalation, exhalation dominant episode in terms of how to progress up to a balloon and how to use it to its most useful effect. So when we talk about our kind of progression of resistance for breathing, our goal is to be able to exhale at the highest intensity possible without everything just sort of closing off and squeezing. The better we can do that, the more open we can stay and the more kind of a sort of an open rib cage, we can maintain, as you exhale at higher levels of intensity, which is very useful in many situations. But what we want to do to begin with is rather than like jumping straight to a balloon or a straw, beginning with just open mouth exhalation. Okay, assuming that we just breathe through our nose and we're good there. When I talk about open mouth exhalation, the difference between an open mouth exhale and a closed mouth exhale is that the more open mouth and lighter my exhale, the more I'm going to be using my deeper abdominals, so my transverse abdominis, my internal obliques that are going to act to close the rib cage more slowly. Those are going to respond to more sort of lighter exhales, more open mouth exhales that are not super focalized. Whereas when I start to close my mouth and purse my lips more into a shape as if I were blowing up a balloon, so I kind of coach person, act as if you're blowing out a candle. That's going to call in more external obliques. It's going to give us a little bit more rectus as well. That's going to close the rib cage more quickly. So depending on what you're going for, a more open mouth, lighter exhale is going to help to close the rib cage more slowly. This is really good for people who are a little bit more tall and narrow, who have a little bit more of a narrow rib cage. Whereas for me, because I have a wider rib cage, it makes more sense for me, to go more into the. But as a progression, we start with a lighter open mouth exhale, and then we progress into the harder. The way that we know that we're doing it right is our pace doesn't really change. Okay, I like to say, 6 to 8 second exhale. As long as that can be maintained, then I know that I'm on the right track. And the way that I like to kind of add in resistance is just by doing them in something like a plank position, because now just by kind of pushing away from the wall, I'm adding a little bit more tension or recoil to the system anyway. So, working on just sort of exhaling, just getting into a good position here. I'm able to inhale at the same rate. I'm able to kind of get this low expansion. Okay, I feel this kind of 360-degree expansion here. I breathe in, light exhale through an open mouth. Okay, and I can feel everything closing off. My body position doesn't change. Okay, assuming that's the case, I can progress to a harder exhale with a more closed lip. And on the re-inhale, the key is that I can still feel that same degree of expansion or to a similar degree, even though I might have a little bit more resistance going on. So once you can do those two things, I might progress from like the wall to the floor. Once I'm good there, once I can still take a deep inhale without too many muscles kicking on, kind of occlude me and keep me from inhaling, exhaling, I know that I'm good to proceed to the straw or to the balloon. So when it comes to blowing up a balloon, what we want to do is move from a more supported to a less supported position. Okay, I love the balloon because it really acts as resistance for all aspects of our breathing cycle. We have our inhalation, we have our exhalation, but we also have the isometric pause between breaths, which really forces me to control what my abdominals are doing versus just kicking into the next breath. Okay, if I can do that well, that's going to almost guarantee that I'm not going to overuse my accessory breathing muscles because it stops that cycle from occurring. Okay, and what I mean by that is I breathe in through my nose, I exhale through my mouth, and then I'm able to pause without almost kicking back into that. Okay, so that's great, and that's what we want to be able to do with the balloon. So with the balloon, when I inhale, exhale, I'm going to inhale, I'm going to blow the balloon up, but then crucially on the kind of the pause between inhale, exhale, I want to control the air not coming back in. Okay, and that shows me whether or not I actually have that control. Let me give you an example. So I breathe in, I blow up the balloon, I kind of cover this a little bit with my finger, so I'm providing sort of I'm kind of giving it a little bit of assistance to not do that, and then I blow it up again. My ultimate goal is to move to a handless version of that, so and that's very difficult to not allow that air to kick back in. That's really providing a lot of isometric resistance with my abs. It's a really good thing to do. The other issue that we run into a lot is the fact that balloons often come like really, really tight. Okay, and so what I like to do is a way to progress things is I'll get a pack of like maybe 10 balloons and I'll go like this. I'll stretch out one balloon 10 times. Okay, I'm just like write 10 on the balloon. That's level 10. Okay, it's the easiest progression balloon. Then I'll stretch one out 9 times, write down 9. Okay, that's the second progression of balloon. And as funny as that seems, a balloon that's been pulled apart 10 times is going to offer significantly less resistance than one that hasn't been pulled apart at all. Okay, the last thing that I want to mention with this is that the balloon, for those of you that overbreathe, the balloon is a fantastic way to get all your air out. Okay, and so what I like to do in that case is I'll breathe in, I'll blow out, and then I'll take the balloon away and get further exhalation as much as I can. Okay, that's going to get that last little bit of air out. For us overbreathers or those that are hyperinflated, it's going to help to kind of kick air out of the system and really help to force things to reset. So I like it for all of those reasons. So give these balloon exercises a go. Please feel free, as always, to post any questions. Have a great week.